Democrats are completely panicked about what's to come. It truly is amazing because the truth is, again, that the systems of government that were set up by the founders are really robust. There are checks and balances in those systems. And it turns out that it was the progressive movement that decided to maximize power at the federal level, and now Democrats are freaked out that that federal power may be used against the things that they want. So, for example, Ezra Klein and Ann Applebaum made fools of themselves yesterday on Ezra Klein's podcast talking about the apocalypse essentially being here. Again, this is sad because Ann Applebaum used to be a really useful author. Her book on the gulags in the Soviet Union is really fantastic. But here they are really scaremongering over the future of the country under Donald Trump.
Somebody was saying to me the other day that when I'm back on Twitter, they know things are really bad. And that's how I feel about having you on this show, that when you're back on the show, things are really quite bad. I'm sorry to have put you into a horseman of the apocalypse bucket, but here you are.
Thanks for that. Is it a backhanded compliment? I'm not sure.
It's a condemnation of the space we find ourselves in.
Okay, but again, the fact that they are talking about the apocalypse is pretty much the whole thing. Right, Ann Applebaum and Ezra Klein, they're suggesting that Donald Trump is going to make dictatorial, fascistic moves to take over the auspices of American government. Now, again, they had no problem when it was Barack Obama or Joe Biden doing it. When it's Donald Trump coming back around, they do have a problem. But here is the thing. There's open debate inside the Trump administration about pretty much everything. And there are checks and balances that remain in the system. And those checks and balances remain robust. So, for example, Democrats right now are panicking over RFK Jr. possibly taking over Health and Human Services. First of all, I find that completely odd because much of RFK Jr.'s agenda was actually Democratic technocratic talking points. Okay, so a lot of the MAHA agenda, Make America Healthy Again agenda, which is about banning particular ingredients, is the kind of stuff that Democrats used to champion when it was Michael Bloomberg in New York City attempting to stop you from getting a big gulp. Okay, but apparently, they're really worried that he's going to thwart, for example, vaccination efforts and all the rest. As the Wall Street Journal points out, no, that's not exactly how the system works. Quote, Kennedy's plans, should he be confirmed by the Senate as Secretary of Health and Human Services, are far from sure to be realized. Already, early signs of potential division within Trump's team have emerged. Kennedy is pushing for the FDA to be tougher on Big Pharma, while Vivek Ramaswamy argued last week on X the FDA is too restrictive, creating unnecessary barriers to innovation. The market is bracing for backbreaking measures targeting Big Pharma, while seemingly forgetting it was Joe Biden who signed a law empowering Medicare to negotiate drug prices directly. Furthermore, the Trump first term suggests that investors shouldn't expect drastic changes in healthcare, largely because reforms are complex and involve trade-offs. So, for example, if RFK Jr. were to limit the approval of a certain drug or lobby against Medicare coverage of GLP-1s for obesity, it could upset swaths of the public. Instead, President Trump might steer Kennedy toward focusing on areas like nutrition rather than drug approval. Already, by the way, RFK Jr. has suggested he's going to issue a lot of advisory opinions rather than simple mandates from the top of the government, which, by the way, is probably the best way to do the government at the federal level. But the media are totally disconnected from the public. And Joe Scarborough is experiencing that in real time. So as we talked about yesterday on the show, Joe and Mika went on bended knee to Donald Trump to rehash their relationship and sort of hit that restart button, Vladimir Putin style. And it turns out he got a lot of blowback for that. A lot of people very angry with Joe and Mika for meeting with Trump because they have betrayed the cause that they suggested that they were leading. And so here is Scarborough saying, it turns out a lot of people on the left are disconnected. Yeah, you think?
Yesterday I saw for the first time what a massive disconnect there was between social media and the real world. Because we were flooded with phone calls from people all day, literally around the world. Very positive, very supportive, going, understand what you do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But once in a while, I would get a text or a call from someone and go, oh, man, I hope you're doing okay. And I'd call him back, and I go, well, Eddie Glaude was one of them. I go, Eddie, are you on Twitter? And he goes, I am. I go, okay, well, I'm not. So we've had a good day. Mika just had a wonderful event, and it's fantastic. We're going to do all of us are going to do the best we can do, and we're all working towards a better America.
Take it day by day.
Day by day.
Oh, my goodness. Well, why the long faces then? Again, the complete disconnect between the members of the media who are again, their own self-appointed moral elite and the rest of the public. That disconnect is very real. Mike Barnacle was on MSNBC asking how they make themselves relevant again. The answer is it's very difficult for you to do so because you separated yourself off from the American public, not the other way around.
I don't know how we make ourselves relevant again, because we can't compete with 20-second snippets on an iPhone, walking up the street,
morsels,
getting your entire news digest of the day in less than a minute on your phone as you're walking under the crowd with coffee in one hand and your phone in the other. I don't know how we catch up to that.
Well, I mean, the way that you catch up with that is to be honest in your coverage. But again, I think that's kind of hard for you to do, which is one of the reasons why Comcast is now greenlighting a $7 billion spinoff of their cable channels. Yes, that includes MSNBC. So these channels have been falling flat. MSNBC's ratings are in the toilet. I mean, our ratings on the show are way higher than pretty much anything on MSNBC. MSNBC is a collapsing content distributor. Honestly, the only thing that can be done with MSNBC is to sell it to somebody who actually knows what the hell they're doing and who has not disconnected themselves from the American people. Good luck with that. We'll get to more on that in a moment. First, as social unrest escalates and crime rates climb, securing the safety of your family is more crucial than ever. Now, listen, I love the Second Amendment. I own an entire bevy of guns, but the thought of using lethal force in your own home, not ideal for everybody. That's why you need to check out Byrna. Not just because, obviously, you could be saving lives on both sides, but also, God forbid, you make a mistake with an actual, gun, as opposed to the Byrna, could be really wrecking your life as well as that of others. Introducing the Byrna Ungun, the non-lethal self-defense platform. Lightweight, simple to use, it uses an easy-to-load 5-round magazine. It's powered by an 8-gram CO2 cartridge. Byrna launchers fire a 68 caliber chemical-filled projectile using patented pull-pierce technology, where the CO2 canister is only punctured on that first trigger pull, meaning your launcher is always at the ready. It's capable of incapacitating an attacker for over 30 minutes. It's accurate and effective at over 60 feet. No permits, no background checks. It's interstate travel friendly. With Byrna, you will be prepared to defend. The Byrna is a safer, more sensible alternative that could potentially save lives on both sides, protecting both user and aggressor. Thank you, Byrna, for sponsoring this video. If you haven't yet, go check out last week's episode of Ben After Dark on Daily Wire Plus, brought to you by Byrna. Okay, meanwhile, speaking of a bit of a disconnect, I'm seeing a lot of panic these days about the possibility that Russia's just going to go nuclear and start nuking everybody. I've been hearing this for nigh on 2 years at this point. The answer, as Russia has shown, is that they're not going to nuke anybody over territorial incursions into small areas of Russia in an intractable war situation with Ukraine. Russia's not stupid enough. Vladimir Putin he understands enough to know that a full-scale nuclear conflagration over a bit of territorial incursion or firing a couple of missiles at North Korean troops in Russia would not be in his interest, particularly given the fact that Donald Trump is in fact looking for an off-ramp at this point. So you're seeing an enormous amount of outsized panic over this. Many people have been warning about World War III for a while here. It turns out that you keep warning about World War III and it's never true. Maybe the theory is that one time you're right, maybe. But so far, it's not been close to true. Nonetheless, Putin knows with whom he is playing. And so he's been publicly signaling that he's going to up the ante. According to CNN, President Putin has updated Russia's nuclear doctrine 2 days after his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden granted Ukraine permission to strike targets deep inside Russia with American-made weapons. Under the updated doctrine, Moscow will consider aggression from any non-nuclear state, with the participation of a nuclear country, a joint attack on Russia. The Kremlin began this fresh round of nuclear saber rattling on Tuesday, saying the revised military doctrine would, in theory, lower the bar to first use of military weapons. In a phone call with reporters, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov noted the changes mean that, quote, the Russian Federation reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression using conventional weapons against it or the Republic of Belarus. So the revised doctrine apparently is now that if you have a state like Ukraine that is backed by any NATO member that has nuclear weapons, that the Russian Federation may consider using nuclear weapons first use. They're not going to do that. Okay, let's be real about this. They're not going to do that. If they're publicly signaling that because they understand that by signaling that, they might be able to get the United States to back off. But the sort of outsized panic, you see World War III trending on Twitter. I promise you, the Twitter foreign policy analysts who are determined that World War III is going to happen because suddenly Ukraine can fire a missile at North Korean troops that are entering Ukraine. Like, really, that is not true. Okay, it's not real. It's not going to happen. I'm just saying, if it does, then I will be very shocked. Now, does that mean that we should take the risk blithely? Of course not, which is why you look for an off-ramp. But the notion that we should all be quivering in our boots when Vladimir Putin saber rattles, that's a bad way to do foreign policy, especially given the fact that Russia has been spreading its tentacles as a nuclear-backed power literally all over the world, from Africa to the Middle East. According to the Wall Street Journal, as Israel advances its invasion of southern Lebanon, troops are finding large troves of Russian weapons, confirming long-standing suspicions in Israel that Hezbollah is enhancing its fighting capacity with the help of sophisticated Russian arms. And of course, it was Russia that had shipped in a bunch of anti-aircraft defenses to Iran that Israel then blew up in the last round of fighting. The Russian government and Syrian foreign ministry did not return requests for comment. Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, highlighted Russia's leverage over the militant group when he said recently Israel hopes Russia will help enforce any agreement to disarm Hezbollah by preventing weapons smuggling from Syria to Lebanon. He said the Russians are present in Syria. If they agree with the principle, they can contribute to achieving its objective effectively. So again, Vladimir Putin has a very strong interest in saber rattling over Ukraine in the hopes that this will leverage him a better deal. He is going to end up retaining large swaths of the Donbass and Crimea. This is already a foregone conclusion. The only question is what sort of security guarantees will be given to Ukraine to dissuade a further Russian invasion in the future. But people should not be, I think, unduly concerned about Russia saying they're going to nuke everybody. They've been saying this for nigh on 80 years at this point. Since they gained nuclear weapons in the early 50s, they've been doing this. So I would be shocked to take any of this particularly seriously, at least more seriously than is necessary in order to achieve some sort of off-ramp here.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.